welcome back to my channel. Thanks for everyone who is watching, for being here. Today I would like to start a new series that's all about teaching and things that I have learned and all sorts of teaching things. I was a full-time classroom teacher for 2 years, teaching 3rd grade at a charter school. And before that I did some subbing and all my practicums in college and all of that. But my first year teaching was actually the year of COVID, so I had quite the experience and I learned a lot. As any first year teacher or any year teacher, but especially that was first couple years, you learn a whole lot. So I would like to share with you a list of things I learned during my first year of teaching that maybe, just maybe, you can learn and you can glean from if you are in that season of life pursuing teaching, that you can kind of have an understanding of what's going to happen in your first year, help yourself out a little bit. So let's dive in. The first thing I learned as a first year teacher is that you can't do it all. Seems kind of obvious. It's like, well, of course I can't. But when you are in the midst of teaching, that first year have just come off of college, you have a million ideas about math, a million about literacy, a million about science, and you want to apply all of those ideas in your head ASAP. And when you start to do that, you realize quickly that if you're doing a million different things, you are stretching yourself very thin, and it's not feasible to do all of these things all at once and do them all very well. So what I would advise to a first year teacher is to take just a couple things that you really want to implement in your classroom. If that's class roles, if that's weekly STEM projects, read aloud, certain projects, whatever that is, you can't do it all. It's just not feasible. And every year, take a couple things and add on. First year, pick 3 things you really, really, really want to do that are different from your regular teaching, because obviously you got to teach the subjects. Next year, add on 2 more things. The next year, add on a couple things, and then it will be much smoother of a ride versus saying, I have 1,200 ideas on my Pinterest board and I want them all done right now, because that's just not going to happen. The next thing that would have been helpful for me is to have a mentor teacher. Now, at my school at the time, we had one teacher who was like above all of us first new teachers, like first year teachers at that school at the time, but it didn't necessarily feel, they weren't a teacher in a classroom, so I didn't really be able to like, let's go watch them and learn from them, or like sit down one-on-one, and it didn't feel like it was super helpful. And my first year of teaching, backstory, all 4 of us that were on my 3rd grade team at the time were new to the school, and 3 of the 4 of us were first year teachers. So none of us knew anything about the school, and then 3 out of the 4 of us didn't know anything about teaching, like the actual act of being a full-time teacher. And so that was a lot. I didn't have anybody to like on my team look up to, somebody who had been teaching for 20 plus years that I could learn from, and having that would have been really nice. So if I were to go back, I would seek out somebody, even if they weren't in my grade, just to find them and be like, could we meet once a week? Could we meet once a month just to talk over issues that I'm facing, problems that I'm having? Because it's different going to a colleague versus going to your principal for everything. Like, they just don't have the time for that all the time. And so I would find a mentor teacher. The third thing is that rest is crucial. Rest is crucial. My schedule first year of teaching looked like waking up at 5, leaving the house by 6:30, being at my work by 6:45, not leaving until after 5 p.m., eating dinner, hanging out with my husband for a little bit. We had just gotten married a couple months prior to school start. Well, a couple weeks prior to my school year starting. And then grading papers for 2 to 3 hours, and then going to bed and doing it all over again. I was working like 13 hours every single day, and I got burnt out really quickly. My husband and I, a little bit after that, read a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. I'll put a picture here on the screen for you. It's amazing. It's by John Mark Comer, and he talks all about Sabbath and about rest, and just about how our society is built so much on accomplishing things and getting things done, and we almost like take pride in the fact of like being busy. But that's not what the Lord says. That's not how we're supposed to live our lives. And I was just going. And when you're going nonstop, like, how are you supposed to get your own cup filled up to be able to like continue giving? Like, you just can't. And then you're trying to give from an empty cup. And you're not gonna be as good of a teacher. You're not gonna be as good of a friend, daughter, wife, mom, any of those things if you have an empty cup. You need that rest to be able to function. The next one I would like to talk about goes hand in hand with that, and that is setting boundaries. I do not advise having your work email on your phone, because parents of students, they don't have boundaries, but they don't expect you to have boundaries either. They're emailing you at 11 o'clock at night. I had my principal emailing us at 11 o'clock at night about meetings and such. When you are home, you should be home. You should be with your family, with your husband. You can let an email sit for 6 extra hours so that you can sleep, focus on dinner, and get to it when you get into work in the morning. There is very few occurrences that need an instant reply. Most of the time, like, family should want you to take that time with your family, but they have no problem emailing you at night. So if you're sitting there at dinner and you're getting emails popping through, you're gonna feel the need to open them, to read them, to respond to them, and then there goes your evening. So boundaries are crucial, they're needed, they're critical. You need that time with your family, they need that time with their family. So just don't even put your email on your phone. You need those boundaries. Growing up, I always wanted to be a teacher. I loved grading papers, starring papers, like grade book, like I loved that. But bringing that into teaching, I was making everything something that I looked at. Not necessarily an assignment, but every single paper turned in, I felt the need and the desire to look at every student's paper and put a check mark, a star, a sticker, and give it back to them. I could have saved myself so much time if I wouldn't have treated every single piece of work that those students did as something that needed to be turned in. Some things it should have just been, if it's done, you're good. Not everything needs to be looked at. And so for me, I just loved looking at papers, grading them, all those things, that everything I had them turn in and everything I turned back, instead of saying, they just needed to turn this in, I just need to check their name off to make sure they did it, and boom, they don't need it back. It can go in the trash or set aside for conferences or whatever. And I could have saved myself time, because that time of just check mark, star, sticker, whatever, takes time. And then passing it back out takes time. And most parents aren't going to look at 5 papers every single day. So if you send home only the really important things, or things like a couple a month or a couple a week versus every day, you're going to help parents have better lives, and you're going to give yourself a little bit less load to do. The next one is plan ahead. Now, you feel as a first-year teacher like you are literally planning day